Could a swarm of homemade UAVs, each costing $2,000 from Ukraine, destroy an entire North Korean arms convoy worth tens of millions of dollars? August 21st, 2025. In the quiet fields near Novoherdivka, Donetsk, a convoy of 62 trucks and 480 North Korean soldiers, carrying tons of missiles and ammunition worth a total of $18 million, confidently advanced towards the Russian front. But they did not know that in the darkness above, a Ukrainian UAV was tracking their every move, transmitting coordinates directly to Kramatorsk. Suddenly, the sky roared with the roar of 200 homemade drones, each carrying 10 kilos of explosives, plowing straight into the North Korean convoy. It was the deadliest ambush of the summer. The cost? Less than $2,000 for the homemade drones. But could Ukraine's cheap weapons defeat the world's most heavily armed North Korean army? And what does this mean for the future of modern warfare? I will show you the truth right now. At 1945, August 21st, 2025, the silence of the Donetsk countryside shattered beneath the rumble of engines. Along the battered T-0508 highway near Pokrovsk, a massive North Korean convoy stretched for nearly 2 miles. 62 trucks, each packed with crates of rockets, mortar rounds, and anti-tank missiles, rolled forward under the watch of 480 armed escorts. Their orders were clear: deliver the weapons to Russian units entrenched on the Eastern Front. No delays, no mistakes. The scene was eerily cinematic. Headlights piercing the dusk, armored vehicles spaced exactly 100 meters apart to minimize losses in case of ambush. At the front, 4 reconnaissance jeeps swept the road with thermal scanners, capable of detecting movement up to 2 kilometers ahead. Every 30 seconds, their radios crackled with updates. All clear, no heat signatures. Confidence was rising. But confidence is a dangerous illusion in war. Reports from Russian liaison officers had promised this route was secure, swept for mines, screened for drones, patrolled by lookouts. It was, on paper, the safest artery to the front. Yet every soldier in the convoy knew the statistics. In the past 3 months alone, Ukraine had destroyed over 1,200 supply vehicles, reducing entire battalions to silence. Still, the escorts muttered reassurances. Tonight would be different. Tonight they were protected. The convoy's formation reflected textbook discipline. Flank security, rear guards, heavy machine guns mounted on the middle trucks. From above, it resembled a steel serpent cutting across an empty plain. Dust clouds rose behind the columns, catching the last orange glow of the setting sun, making the entire formation visible for miles. In those final minutes of calm before the storm broke, the convoy rolled with the certainty of men who believed their path was safe. What they did not know was that every truck, every soldier, every weapon was already entered into Ukraine's kill log. If you were in that convoy, what would you do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now let me see how Ukraine created the trap. High above the rolling convoy, at 3,200 feet, a Ukrainian reconnaissance UAV loitered in slow circles. Barely larger than a man's arm span, its frame was patched together from carbon tubing and cheap composite boards. But what it carried mattered more than its price tag. A high-definition infrared camera transmitting live imagery back to a forward command post in Kramatorsk, 40 kilometers away. Every 7 seconds, a burst of encrypted data pulsed across satellite relays, coordinates, heat signatures, even tire tracks. On massive screens inside the bunker, Ukrainian commanders watched in real time as the convoy crawled across the highway. Each truck was tagged, numbered, and entered into the digital strike matrix. One colonel whispered to his staff, 62 targets. Priority 1, munitions carriers. Priority 2, escort armor. The operation was unfolding with surgical precision. Waiting in concealed launch sites were 200 improvised attack drones, cheap, ugly, and deadly. Each cost less than $2,000, cobbled together with lawnmower engines, plastic tubing, and wings reinforced with plywood. To the untrained eye, they looked like amateur toys. But under their frames hung 8 to 10 kilograms of high explosive charges, powerful enough to shred an armored vehicle into burning wreckage. Their strength was not sophistication but sheer numbers. Ukraine's doctrine was clear: swarm warfare. If 200 UAVs were deployed, enemy defenses might down half, even 2/3. But even if 70 or 80 broke through, the damage would be catastrophic. And in war, catastrophic was enough. From above, the convoy moved into an exposed stretch of farmland, 1.8 kilometers of open ground, no trees, no shelter, the perfect kill zone. On the ground, North Korean scouts still reported all clear. Their sensors picked up no engine heat, no electronic noise. The irony was brutal. The drone's crude engines and jerry-rigged parts produced signals so irregular that advanced detectors dismissed them as background clutter. At 1958, the order came through the encrypted channel. Begin Phase 1. Release the swarm. Unseen in the twilight, across 3 hidden fields, the first drone engines coughed to life. The air began to tremble with the rising hum of 200 blades, a sound that would soon grow into the roar of an artificial storm. The convoy below had no idea the hunters were already airborne. Before we continue with the deadly attack, be sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss a single detail. At 20:02, the convoy entered the stretch of farmland near Novohorodivka, 1.8 kilometers of exposed road, flat earth on both sides, not a single tree for cover. To the soldiers inside the trucks, it felt routine. Dusk settling, headlights sweeping forward, engines droning. But to the operators in the Ukrainian command post, this was the perfect trap. On their screens, the kill zone was already framed in red. Then the sound came. At first it was a faint buzzing, mistaken for insects in the summer air, but within seconds it grew into a low, grinding roar, the combined hum of 200 improvised UAVs approaching from 4 different vectors. The swarm descended like an iron storm. North Korean scouts were the first to react. Their thermal imagers suddenly lit up with dozens of moving heat signatures. "Contact, multiple drones inbound," one shouted into his radio. Panic laced his voice. Almost immediately, the convoy's defensive weapons opened fire. From the escort trucks, 6-barreled Gatling guns began to scream, spewing 4,000 rounds per minute into the sky. Tracers stitched the darkness, carving bright arcs of fire across the open field. The first wave of drones, nearly 70 units, was shredded in seconds, their engines erupting into flames, debris raining down on the convoy's flanks. Soldiers cheered briefly, convinced the threat was being contained. But the relief was short-lived. From the eastern horizon, a second wave of 130 drones pressed forward in tight formation. Unlike conventional aircraft, they flew erratically, zigzagging, dipping, climbing, their chaotic flight paths designed to overwhelm tracking systems. Gatling guns roared again, chewing through the night sky. Reports confirmed at least 30 more drones destroyed, but it wasn't enough. At 20:05, the remaining 100 drones breached the defensive cordon. They came in low, just 10 to 15 feet above the ground, darting between vehicles like steel hornets. The first detonation ripped through the center of the convoy, a munitions truck carrying 15,000 rounds of 122mm shells. The explosion sent a fireball 50 meters into the air, instantly incinerating 2 nearby escort jeeps. Chain reactions followed. Another drone slammed into a fuel truck. 2,500 gallons of diesel erupted, coating the road in liquid fire. Within moments, a wall of flames engulfed 300 meters of highway. Soldiers scrambled for cover, but the kill zone offered none. The air turned into chaos. Gunfire, explosions, and human screams blended into a single unending roar. One heavy machine gun truck managed to down 12 drones before 3 struck it simultaneously, tearing the vehicle apart and silencing its crew. Another detonation crushed the lead truck, halting the entire column. The convoy was now immobilized, trapped in a burning corridor. By 2008, the battlefield was unrecognizable. Smoke pillars rose like black towers. 42 vehicles were already aflame, their ammunition cooking off in violent bursts. Casualty estimates were catastrophic. Over 280 North Korean troops killed in the first 6 minutes. Survivors clung to rifles, firing blindly into the sky, but the swarm kept coming. Above it all, the Ukrainian reconnaissance UAV hovered silently, recording every strike. Each explosion confirmed the operation's success. The convoy, once confident in its safety, was dissolving into fire and ash. And this was only the beginning. And what happened next was even more devastating. Stay with us because the worst is yet to come. By 2010, the convoy was no longer moving. What had begun as a disciplined column was now a burning scrapyard stretched across nearly 1.2 kilometers of highway. The air shimmered with heat, the ground trembling as detonations rippled one after another. The defensive fire slackened. Many of the 6-barreled autocannons had already exhausted their ammunition. Each weapon had spat out more than 12,000 rounds in under 4 minutes. Crews scrambled to reload, but the swarms gave them no pause. The second strike wave, over 80 drones, slipped through the gaps in fire, diving directly into the immobilized trucks. The explosions were surgical, merciless. One UAV smashed into a truck carrying rockets for BM-21 Grad launchers, triggering a detonation so violent it flattened vehicles within a 60-meter radius. Another plowed into an armored personnel carrier, igniting its fuel reserves and throwing its turret 30 feet into the air. Soldiers caught in the blast zone were hurled like ragdolls, their silhouettes briefly illuminated by fire before vanishing into the smoke. By 2013, the casualty count had spiked. Over 360 North Korean troops confirmed dead, nearly 75% of the entire escort force. Dozens more lay wounds, mortars and rifles reduced to ash. From the command post in Kramatorsk, Ukrainian officers logged the outcome in a single line of cold efficiency. Convoy destroyed. 0 survivors. It was the most cost-effective strike of the summer. Less than $400,000 in drones had annihilated an enemy force worth tens of millions in weapons and manpower. For the world, this was just another entry in the war's statistics. For those who watched the feed live, it was something else entirely. The image of a supply line wiped off the map, leaving nothing but silence where once marched an army. The ambush at Novorodivka was more than a battlefield skirmish. It was a lesson carved in fire and smoke. A convoy that began the night with 62 vehicles and 480 men ended with nothing but ruins. No survivors, no escape. What was meant to reinforce the Russian front instead became a graveyard of North Korean soldiers and a warning to every nation supplying Moscow's war machine. The numbers alone are staggering. Less than $400,000 worth of improvised drones erased military hardware worth tens of millions, along with hundreds of trained troops. The asymmetry is undeniable. Ukraine proved that ingenuity and massed precision can overturn the weight of heavy armor and manpower. This was not just an attack. It was a demonstration that the old rules of war no longer apply. For Ukraine, it was a triumph. For Russia and its allies, it was a catastrophe. And for the watching world, it was a glimpse into the future of conflict. Skies filled not with jets, but with swarms of cheap machines, carrying death at the cost of spare parts and stolen engines. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield whispered one truth: technology and courage can shatter brute force. But it also carried a darker reminder. Wars are no longer fought only with weapons of steel, but with strategies that turn the simplest tools into devastating power. If you find this campaign meaningful and want to support more in-depth analysis like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And hit the bell icon so you never miss out on these ongoing conflicts. Wounded in the dirt, their radios crackling with desperate calls for medics that would never arrive. The Ukrainian UAV feed captured it all. Blackened wrecks, ammunition cooking off like fireworks, men scattering in chaos. A handful of survivors attempted to regroup near the rear column. They rallied around two surviving heavy machine gun trucks, forming a defensive line. For a moment, their concentrated fire managed to carve a pocket of resistance, shooting down 14 incoming drones in less than a minute. But the reprieve was fleeting. From the north, a fresh cluster of 40 UAVs swooped in low. Within seconds, both gun trucks vanished in twin fireballs, their crews obliterated. The battlefield fell silent, except for the crackle of flames and the distant buzz of circling drones. The invincible supply convoy, 62 vehicles strong at departure, was now reduced to fewer than 20 smoldering wrecks. The chain of destruction was complete. Weapons lost, men slaughtered, escorts annihilated. For Ukraine's command post, the data was undeniable. The swarm tactic had broken the enemy's spine. For the soldiers on the ground, it was hell on earth, and there was no way out. By 2018, the battlefield was unrecognizable. What had once been an armored convoy was now a corridor of flame and twisted steel. Columns of black smoke clawed 300 feet into the air, visible for miles across the Donetsk steppe. The roar of engines and gunfire had faded, replaced only by the crackling of ammunition cooking off in abandoned wrecks. A few scattered North Korean survivors, barely 40 men, broke from the inferno, sprinting across the fields in desperate attempts to escape. Their radios spat frantic calls for extraction, but no reply ever came. Above them, the Ukrainian reconnaissance UAV marked their positions with cold precision. Within minutes, a final cluster of 20 attack drones peeled away from the main swarm. They came in low, engines snarling like angry hornets. One by one, the drones dove into the fleeing soldiers. The explosions were small, 5 to 6 kilograms of explosive each, but devastating at such close range. Dirt, smoke, and body parts erupted in violent bursts. Men who had survived the highway inferno were erased in open fields, with no shelter, no chance to resist. By 2022, the operation was over. The battlefield lay silent, blanketed in smoke and embers. Out of 480 North Korean troops, none remained alive. Out of 62 vehicles, only twisted hulks smoldered, their cargo of rockets